So in today's review, I'm going to handle it a little bit differently. Normally I go through the technical aspects, talk about story, cinematography, editing, and on today's episode I'm just not going to do that. Not because I don't want to, but after watching this film, it really struck me in a different way. Normally when I watch a movie, I'm appreciating the cinematography, the editing, the directing, because that's what excites me as a filmmaker, but also as a film watcher. But for this film, it was a little bit different. I didn't spend very much time thinking about directing or acting or cinematography. I just thought about the story and the real life connections of this story. Now, of course, this is an adaptation of a book that's also based on a true story, so there's going to be some leeway here as there is any biographical film. So I don't know what is 100% accurate, what is made up, what is just for the screen, etc., etc. I don't know the real life relationships between the husband and wife, but the fact of the matter is there's a very large message attached to this film, and that's what interested me the most. So this is what Padman's all about, this right here. Every time I've seen one of these, I just figured, oh, it's just a necessity of life. It's just something you kind of have to do and use just to be a woman in society. The fact that people in 2001 were still using rags instead of low-cost maxi pads was really an eye-opening experience to me. According to the statistics they use in the film, only 12% of the estimated 500 million women in India were using some sort of maxi pad like this, which is just astonishing. I'm so used to seeing these in the supermarket, and you just know every woman is either using one of these, a tampon. They would never think of using a cloth or a rag. They would automatically assume it's unsanitary and that you're gonna follow disease with it. And this isn't me criticizing or judging or anything. This is just me relaying my own personal experience of what I've been exposed to. So when I watched this film, I didn't know that it was like this in India. I genuinely didn't. I assumed, honestly, that it was probably villages in Africa and really, really low-income areas around the world where this might not be an option. So to see it spread into India, and obviously this isn't the whole country of India, this is just this particular region that is talked about in the movie, but 12% is a large gap. And even when the film progresses forward in time, the statistic changes to 18%. And that was actually one of Padman's main goals, to get it to 100%, which I would say, you know, in America, it's probably at least 75%. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to ask every single woman, but I would assume for the most part, based on how much we see them in the supermarket, that it's relatively affordable and it's kind of just a way of life. I mean, these pads right here, I bought a few packs of them for $1, and there's 16 of them in there. And so when they're talking about how in 2001 a pack of maxi pads was 55 rupees, and the only reason why I kind of can gauge how much that is in my head is I did a super chat, I didn't know, and someone donated 40 rupees to me, and I was like, oh, what is that? Is that like, how much money is that? I don't even know what the hell that is. And it ended up being like 40 cents. And that's in today's value. I don't really know what it is in 2001. I probably should have looked it up prior to this, but that's okay. The fact of the matter is, the wife was basically explaining to Padman how much of a nuisance it would be to buy these, not just for her, but for the whole family. As many of you in the comments have told me, Indian families stay together. There really isn't a lot of moving out, so you're living with generations within one house. And this was a pretty good example of that. It was a good exposure to that. We saw some of that in Gangs of Wasseypur, we being Gian and myself, but to this extent, really showed that power structure, that dynamic within the household. The grandma was the one running the shots. And me personally, I would just assume as a Hispanic, as a Mexican, that as a male, he's the one calling the shots. If he was making these low-cost maxi pads, I would assume that the wife would just try them right away. That there would be no back and forth. The shame thing wouldn't be a thing because the man said so. Clearly, that's not the case in this particular situation, at least for this particular family. Again, I don't know how much boundaries or how universal this story is in India. Please let us know in the comments, well, me specifically. But it was very interesting. It was a learning experience, to say the least. And to be honest with you, just it's over this. I mean, it's over some cotton. Well, it's not cotton, as you learn in the movie. So when I first watched the trailer reaction, I had thought that Padman was a superhero, and not in the context of the film, but an actual superhero. Like, that's how he would go around and save people, because I thought, oh, maybe this is a comic book movie. And then by the end of the trailer, I found out, no, he's going to basically make maxi pads for cheap. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Obviously, the movie became popular. It's starring Akshay Kumar. A lot of people requested that we do reviews of it. So I went ahead and watched the movie today, and I was pleasantly surprised that it was more than just about a guy making sanitary napkins, as they're called. It was about a guy who was trying to passionately convince his own wife to better herself by using these maxi pads in order to prevent herself from using dirty rags and catching disease, which would cause birth defects. The movie's 2.5 hours long, and for the most part, it does pretty well to maintain this pace. It doesn't feel too long. There's definitely some songs that I personally would not have had in there just because they didn't add to the overall story. I understand the purpose of them, but they could have almost been online-only exclusive releases. For example, one of the younger girls, when she first gets her period, they have like a party celebration for her. And I understand that there's a cultural significance to that, or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it was just scripted for the movie, but that was my interpretation of it. However, it didn't really lend itself to the overall story. We could have easily have skipped that scene. We could have just had Padman hear about the younger girl having her first period, and then he could have went home to figure out, oh, I'm going to give her one of my pads. But overall, as a story, it also engaged me in a bunch of different ways. Not only did I care about the women in the villages, I also cared for Akshay Kumar. I kind of wanted him to succeed by the end of the story. Not because I wanted the women to have all of these low-cost maxi pads, but because he's just a nice guy. He was always doing the right thing. When his wife was crying at the beginning, he bought one of these little like cat things so it can chop onions for her, which is also cute. So, and also showed his creative side, which allowed the idea or concept that he'd even build a machine to create these. It would make sense. I didn't necessarily care if he invented the perfect maxi pad that would cost, you know, a penny or something like that. All I wanted him to do was succeed. And if that meant creating this, I wanted him to have it. If that meant getting his wife back, I wanted him to have it. He was just a genuinely nice guy, and nice guys, you kind of just want nice things to happen to them. There was this weird period in the film, though, right after the intermission, where his family does abandon him after a series of unfortunate events, to say the least. And so a new girl gets introduced, kind of helps him out. This weird love story develops here. And normally I would be like, oh my God, why is this movie doing this? It's doing it for drama. It's doing it for unnecessary elements that just were never a part of the film up until this point. But for the most part, because of the film's length, you were able to develop this friendship/relationship between Padman and this newer, younger girl, who I'm forgetting her name. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And by the end of it, they don't end up together, but you really want them to end up together, which is this weird thing. And maybe that's not true for everybody, but I definitely thought that. I personally felt like the wife was ungrateful. Regardless of whatever the culture was, it's your husband. You should be able to put up with it a little bit more, look past the family. And I know this is the American sensibilities within me coming out, because I just don't understand what it's like to live in India, or at least this particular part of India, under these housing structures, with family having so much say-so over one's life. Because to me personally, that just would never fly. It just wouldn't. If I was married and I wanted my wife to live a better life, and I had something that I could prove to her would help improve her life, and she refused it because of what her mother said or her sister said, I would honestly just say they could all go f themselves, because to me it's about the safety of my loved ones. Because it wouldn't just extend to my wife. I would also want the sisters, the aunts, whoever was young enough to use these pads, I'd want them to use it as well. And so it was very hard for me to watch these scenes, because it was frustrating at times, not because of the writing or anything like that, but because I was so involved with the story that I basically just wanted them to see what I've seen and what other people have seen in terms of how these little things can actually benefit you. It sucks that you have to pay for them. I wish that there was some program where they didn't have to pay for them. Actually, that was one of the most applaudable things about Padman, was that he didn't do it for the money. He just did it because he wanted to help people out. 2 rupees for I don't know if it was a pack or one of them. I don't know. Regardless, it was super, super cheap. I mean, the way pads are handled, at least in this particular region, there's a funny scene in the movie where he's like, oh, do you have pads? After not even knowing what to really call them. And the shop owner's like, oh, you mean pads? And he's like, yeah, pads, do you have them? And he's like, shh, like, don't say this shit in public. There's women about. And then he hands him this, like, newspaper that has pads on the inside, as if he was doing a drug deal. And even Akshay was like, Padman was like, is this marijuana? Are you selling me marijuana? Like, it's funny because they're treating it like a black market item, and all it is a fucking maxi pad. It's crazy to know that that exists. So overall, I was left with a pretty positive message. Pursue your dreams. Don't let anyone else hold you back. Because at the end of the day, it might just work out for you. You might just end up with a hotter wife. He could have ended up with a hotter wife, but he didn't. He decided to go back. I don't know why. I still don't know why. Maybe because he loves her, I guess. I don't know. But she obviously wasn't there for him. Just saying. But anyway, though, but really, pursue your dreams. Don't let anyone stand in your way. That was my biggest takeaway of this. He wanted to prove people wrong. Everyone doubted him. Literally, everyone doubted him. When he didn't know something, someone told him, go talk to a professor. He went to go talk to a professor. He went to live with the professor. He worked for a professor. And what did that professor do? He listened to the idea, showed him the American company that's doing these low-cost, well, they're not low-cost, but who's making and manufacturing these pads, and told him, you want to make pads? Buy one of these machines that cost $1 million. Basically, he was saying, your dreams are stupid. So even the educated people were saying he was a nobody. And what did he do? He stuck to his guns. Obviously, he made friends with the banker by giving him the best massages, apparently, because he was able to loan him 90,000 rupees for these machines. But that's neither here nor there. He got the money, he did what he needed to do, and he did what he wanted to do. And that's a pretty admirable thing. There's a certain amount of comfortability that people have living life anywhere where they're so used to waking up at X amount of time and going to work for X amount of hours every single day of the week, and they don't really want to strive to do what they want to do. And in this particular case, Padman didn't want to go out and make pads. For the most part, it looked like he was perfectly content with building things. He was welding certain things, fences. Nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary for him. He enjoyed building things, as I just said. He made a little bike seat for his wife for the movie theaters and all these little things. But once he saw that his wife, again, I don't understand how he didn't know this right away, but again, it might be a cultural thing. Maybe they hide this. But noticing that all the women would be out of commission for 5 days out of the month was just a really disheartening thing for him. And he wanted his wife to live the best life she could, the most healthy life she could. Solid 8 out of 10 for this one. Sorry I didn't go super in depth with the technical stuff, but like I said, the message was the most important aspect of this movie. And it was just a huge takeaway for me. I really enjoyed it, and I hope to watch more movies like this in the future that not only entertain me, but also educate me. So with that, guys, that's going to do it for this review. Thank you for staying put and listening through all this bullshit. Hopefully it was entertaining. Hopefully it was interesting. Probably wasn't, but I'm not going to say that. So that's going to do it for this review, guys. Thanks for staying till the end. You know the drill at this point. Hit the like button, subscribe, follow, etc., etc. You know the drill. Let us know in the comments, or let me know in the comments, any other movies you'd like for me to review. Right now, what we're going to try to do is the movies that are on Netflix and things like that we can watch at home. Gian and I will review them together. Movie theater reviews, we're going to try our best to watch them together, but that might not always be the case like right now. But I am personally going to try to do one additional movie review a week where I break down a lesser-known film, maybe a movie that Gian doesn't necessarily want to watch. For example, like Diwali, where it might not be the most popular movie, but I'm intrigued to see it just to gain more knowledge about Indian culture, Indian cinema, etc., etc. There's no region-specific thing, so wherever you want, whatever region film you want, let me know in the comments any movies you want me to review. I am Padman. Padman gloves. Be on my eBay page later. getting a wax right here. See guys, no matter how smart I think I am willing to act stupid, and I'm willing to be stupid. Because that's what makes you relatable. They don't want an idiot. They just want someone who's willing to act like one. And with that, that's going to conclude this review. See you next time.